But I'm blessed, looking in the eyes of my children, blessed, surrounded by the love I've been given, blessed, don't wanna take a moment for granted, sometimes it's so...
My little girl, guys, I had to show her loving her panda. This was so for her. She was my motivation to do this tutorial. So this is by Loops and Threads. It's Fluffy Chenille. Okay, so you're only going to need one skein of each color, but that's knitting tight. So if you don't knit that tight, you're going to want at least 2 whites of the skein. You want 2 whites at least. And then this is right here. This is the trick, guys, what I do for the eyes. It's Loops and Threads Royal Velvet. So it's velvet yarn. It's size 6. And that is what I use to make the eyes. And I decided to go ahead. I usually do all yarn, but I decided to go ahead and do some Google eyes, which is from Amazon. And of course, scissors and polyfill. So here's my panda, guys. Here he is. This is the one out of faux fur. And I want to go and just show you the variations. I do have a tutorial on him. He is totally legit. It's again out of faux fur, size 6, which it is possible to hand knit with. And again, velvet for the eyes. I absolutely love this one. This one is not a toy. I would say more for the older child. Now to get started, I wanted to go ahead and show you right here. Always search in the middle of your skein to find that end that just pulls right out nice and easily from your ball. So when you're working, you're hand knitting, the yarn just flows right out of the skein, and it does make a difference, guys. So always search in the middle first if you can find it. So this is how we start out all plushies. We get it in this formation right here. So the right side where I'm touching, that is your working yarn, and you're going to flip it over like so. We're making a slip knot here. Pull that loop right over, and then you're going to pull the working yarn right up, right through, and then pulling on your tail to tighten it. Now, I didn't say this, but I'm sure you guys saw you want a nice long tail. Better to be safe than sorry. You can do like 10 inches, a ruler size. Now to adjust, you pull on the working yarn, and we want to knit tight, as I emphasize with all my tutorials. You want it to like the joint. Think of the joint on your index finger. You can go even tighter. It becomes more challenging, but this is what creates that flawless finish. Now we're going to be casting on here. So I got 2 fingers in the loop, and you're going to push that working yarn right through the previous or the first stitch that we just did. And this is how you cast on. You take that working yarn and you push it right through the previous loop, and then you pull it forward. Now this is a tricky yarn. It's like a teddy bear variation yarn. And so to count, it helps to massage the tops. And the more you work with it, you will distinguish, as I'm showing you, you will distinguish the loops so easily. You'll be like, how did I even find this challenging? Or the middle, which this can still be tricky, is for each indent is a loop, is a new loop, is a new row. By gliding your finger down the middle, and you will fill it, and that's another way to count. So we're casting on a total of 14. Now with all my tutorials, when I use the Fluffy Chenille, which I have it in the listings, it is only for the Fluffy Chenille, because this yarn is so thick and fluffy that if you use a smaller thickness of yarn, your plushie will not, you'll have to increase the pattern, the casting on amount, the rows knitted, because this yarn is so much more fluffier. You don't need to cast on so much or knit so much to get a medium size, proportionally looking right pattern. So we cast on 14 with the Fluffy Chenille. So it's a real distinguished yarn, guys. It's very fluffy, but it makes your plushie so gorgeous. I do have this in the listing though, so please pay attention, be aware of that. Once you cast on 14, go ahead and count back down. And you see how I'm working my fingertips? I'm really trying to show you here to massage the top of the loops. And that is how you'll always know, like, you count it effectively. So now what we're going to do is the second stitch to the last. You're going to take your long tail, right where you see my finger at, the second stitch to the last always. And poke your long tail right through. We are getting our plushie in the round. And this is how you start out all rounded plushies. Think of teddy bears, think of round pillows, think of anything that's rounded. And you want to make sure your foundation chain is not twisted, it's evenly flat going all the way around. Now that's our first stitch hanging out, okay? So we're going to be knitting through our foundation chain. So I'm touching the slip knot, that little knot, and right next to it is going to be your first stitch. And you're going to take your working yarn and you're going to pull it right through, pinching it and knitting tight. And what's tight again, guys? Do you like the joint on your index finger? You can go even slightly shorter than that, but that'd be quite challenging.
I've been reading books of all the legends and the myths.
And you're going to go through all your foundation chains. So see, you're going to really start to distinguish. You're going to feel that threading right underneath the yarn. Right underneath all this puffy, fluffy yarn. And just like so, we are going to go through the whole foundation chain. So we casted on a total of 14. One stitch was already hanging out. So it's 13 times you're going to be pulling stitches through. And this is how you start out all plushies. And like I was saying, guys, with my tutorials, the Fluffy Chenille, when I do a tutorial out of this yarn, I am going to be specifying that it is only for this yarn because it is so much thicker compared to like Walmart chenille that you'll have to change up the pattern just by increasing everything. But I don't want no one getting confused, so I will be specifying if it's only for this yarn or you're just going to have to simply be increasing it. So rather than casting on 14, you would have to cast on like 16. Not the biggest difference, or you have to be casting on like 18. And I'm going to explain to you why always an even number. So it helps at this point, which I had to go ahead and be counting, but we're going to count right back down. So our tail, your tail is your golden marker, and it will always be connected to the first stitch aligned on the left side. Remember that because this is going to be your biggest helper with this yarn. So right up against that first stitch, practically touching it, that is your last stitch you're going to be knitting through. Do not skip it. It is very easily skipped. It's practically touching that first stitch, connect to the tail on the left side. So here's when you're going to be counting all around. You want to make sure you count a total of 14. If you do not, just undo your work by pulling on the working yarn. It's no big deal, guys. I do it still to this day. Once you're good to go, you're going to knit all the way around again. And this is our second row. And so you see how I'm pulling my working yarn out of my skein. It just flows right out. That's what I'm saying. You want to always try and look for that. And that's right up in the middle. It can be hard to find though. But when you're lucky, I just had to go and point that out, that it really helps. So this is our second row, guys. Still knitting tight. And the more you work with this yarn, the better you become at it. Like, you will become proficient. I love this yarn, guys. It was challenging at first, and now it's like so easy to work with. So always use your tail to let you know that you're coming up to the first stitch, you're almost completing the second row. It just really helps to have it as your golden marker. So this way, at this point, guys, I don't really count because I use that tail so much. Now when you get to your third row, you're gonna fold it just like so. You're gonna fold it in half, just as you saw me do on the third row. Why do we fold it? Because it helps you knit tighter on the left and right side where you're bending it, where when it comes to the enclosing, it helps eliminate the gaps. It is all about knitting tight and flawless, and that is why we fold it, because it helps you knit each stitch tighter to each other. And this is entirely true, guys. I tested the theory out with the pumpkin, I think it was, and it was just yeah, I messed it up. It really does help you knit tighter. So this is the third row, and we're going to be doing a total of 10 or 11 rows. And this is the belly, guys, so we're starting from the butt and working up. So we want a total of 10 or 11 rows. I do 10. So again, using my tail as my marker aligned on the left side of the first stitch. So you want a total of 10 or 11 rows, and I do 10, guys. So I'm showing you right here how to count. Let's say you lose what row you're on. Glide your finger down the middle. You will feel, so there's our foundation chain. And kind of like lift your finger a little bit. You will feel the distinguished loop, and that will help you know which row you're on. So yeah, I'm jumping here, guys, to keep this tutorial from already over an hour long, but I take you through my whole process. So once you have about 10 to 11 rows, you're going to cut a short tail, as you just saw me do. Then you're going to take your new color, and I'm using gray here, guys, because that's the color that they offered in this brand. And I'm simply tying it on. That's it. That is how you switch from different colors in hand knitting. I'm tying on 2 knots, guys. 2 knots. I'm not bothering of cutting off the ends. It's going to be all hidden and tucked. And I'm getting that knot right up against the stitch. I want it right up against the stitch. If you can help it, then keep that knot hidden. Now do you see how I'm knitting around that knot? If you can help it, then keep it hidden. We want flawless, beautiful knitting here. And so that is how you join different colors. It is simply tying on a knot, at least 2 knots. If your yarn snaps on you, which is totally always possible, it still happens to me, guys, especially when you're enclosing because you're pulling on it. You simply just tie on more yarn as you're adding, as I just showed you, adding new color. You just tie on more yarn. There is the burn method, which I do have a public video that I show you, the burn method and the sewing method. But if you want to be quicker, and it's a plushie, it's going to be hidden, just tie on more yarn. Simple as that, guys. That's what hand knitting is such an easier, quicker craft. So with his chest, guys, we can do either 4, 5, or 6 rows. I recommend 5 rows. I do 5, but why am I giving a different number? Because it's all about the tension of your knitting. So always use your tail to tell you that is the first stitch. So now I'm going to see I'm tugging it, I'm really pulling. You want to knit tight, and this is the second row, guys. So like I said, you can do a total of 4, 5, or 6. I do 5, but it's all about the tension of your knitting. So this is what it should look like. Pause the video to catch up. Now once you're good, Do you see I'm putting 2 loops on my finger? We are decreasing now. We're doing the net, guys. So you have 2 loops on your finger and pull that working yarn right through both loops. And it will always and only be 2 loops on the finger. This is how you decrease in hand knitting. It's a universal skill right here that I'm teaching you. And you're going to take the next set, 2 loops, and always and only 2. And now this is why we cast on an even number. So now you know. Always an even number. If you're going to be doing any kind of decreasing, you want to cast on an even number because it finishes it off with an even number. so we cast on 6, 2 divided into 6, 3. So you never want to cast on an odd number because then you're going to have 1 loop remaining. So you want just everything to be perfection and flawless. So you should have a total of 7 loops when you are done decreasing for the neck. We are taking it in. So this is how it's done, guys. If you're ever wondering, this is a universal skill right here. You can apply this to all your hand knitting crafts now. And that's it, just like so. Now here's a little trick right here. Or your golden mark or your tail is aligned with the first stitch still, but it's aligned on the right side now. Now it's on the right side, so be aware of that. It's the right side now. So I'm going to show you again right here. Just like so, right side of that first stitch. So now this is when you want to go ahead and double check and count that you have the correct amount. So 2 divided into 14, guys, usually we should have 7. If you have more than 7, then don't worry, just undo your work by pulling on the working yarn and start all over again. But you will get it. So once you're good to go, we're going to go back to the white just as we previously did. Tie back on the white now. You can do 1 knot, 3 knots, there's no rule. I'm gonna do 2, guys, because I want to do 2. And that's it. That's what I'm saying. This craft can be done with children. It is so relaxing and enjoyable. It's fun. If you're new to this, if you're barely learning, this is such a wonderful, fun craft because you get to work with the plushiest yarns that are so truly soft, and it builds up your craft so fast. So now this is our head, guys, and we are going to do a total of 11 or 12 rows. Now we're increasing, okay? So I should have said this first, but you knit the first loop and then you're going to increase, which is in between the 2 gray stitches. You will see the working yarn right in between. You're going to pull the white right underneath through. It's very easy, so I'm going to show it again. So right in between 2 gray loops, that working yarn, pull the white stitch right through. And this is increasing. So we're getting that width back for the head. So it's going to be knit, increase, knit, increase, knit, increase, all the way around until you get your total 14 back. Again, this is a universal skill. This is how you increase. So you're going to work it all the way around. Knit, increase, right in between 2 gray stitches. That working yarn right in between. Knitting tight, guys. You want to keep it tight still. So once you learn this right here, you can apply it to so many crafts. So we're making a panda, but now you know how to make a teddy bear. Now you know how to make Winnie the Pooh. Any craft that is in this formation. So again, I'm using my tail to tell me that's stitch 1. So right before stitch 1, right under that messy knot, you're going to make your last increase. And that's it. And then again, always double check your work. So we cast it on 14, so I want to count 14. If you're coming up short, undo your work by pulling on the working yarn and just do it all over again. It's just practice, guys. You will get it. So like I was saying for the head, so I got a little mess going right here, but I want to show you. It's real easy. Just find that white working yarn and just work all around. So this is row 2, and we want a total of 11 or 12 rows. So this is what it should look like. I am jumping ahead here, guys. Just pause the video. So once you're good, you're gonna cut a tail. So I'm showing you the length of like how much I cut. So like just under 12 inches. I don't want to be wasteful with the yarn here, but just under 12 inches. So once you're good, we're going to do the enclosing part. Now we're going to enclose our bottom, guys. Now the stitch, you're going to fill it. The stitch right next to that tail. Right next to the knot. You're going to take your nice long tail and you're going to poke it from inside out. Golden rule. This is enclosing. From this angle, it's bottom up. But it's inside out. And when you get to like the second or third stitch, that is when you're going to tug it. So the whole basis is enclosing it effectively. So some of you are going to go through your whole total foundation chain worth to enclose it beautifully. Others are going to go through almost all of it. There is no rule. Once it's enclosed to your satisfaction, you're done then. But you're working your tail through the bottom of the foundation chain from inside out always, or from this angle bottom up, and it creates a beautiful flowery pattern. Now I'm giving a real good tug here, guys. I recently was doing a tutorial and it snapped right on camera, and I just left it to show. So I'm a little hesitant now because it makes work. So if it snaps on you because you're pulling really tight or tugging, undo your work enough where you can tie on more yarn. It does make more work, and then it makes a lump where it kind of makes it harder now when you're pulling that knot right through. But then there is the burn method. I don't like the burn method or the sewing method. I just tie on my yarn. But this is it. You are enclosing it effectively. Working through your foundation chain, guys. So with this one, with this yarn, you're not gonna see the flowery, beautiful enclosing pattern. That's more for like yarn that's a little bit thinner. With my turtle, I use Burnett, and you can very much see the flowery pattern on his shell. It looks really pretty. This one you don't. It just does a really good, effective enclosing. So if you're not seeing like, what is she talking about? You cannot see it, but it encloses it very nice. So now what we do next is we're going to tie a knot. This is all by habit because, guys, I'm going to use hot glue. With all my enclosing, I'm going to use hot glue. So just simply tie a knot. It's all for security purposes. And then in the previous opening, you're going to tuck in that tail. Now let's say you do a really good enclosing. Chunky chenille yarn is very forgiving, so you will find any stitch to poke this tail through. Very easy. Gonna pull it right in. It looks good, guys. Now right there is where I'm going to be putting hot glue, because I'm giving this to my baby toddler, and I just want all security purposes. But another security is find any stitch on the bottom of your plushie. Slip your finger underneath it and pull your working yarn right through it, just halfway through, where you're going to create a loop and then the small tail. And just as you see me doing, you're going to push that small tail right through that loop. I'm locking it in even more. That's another way. Even though I'm going to use hot glue, guys, I'm just all about security and longevity. Which I highly recommend to use hot glue, which you're going to poke it in and then cut a piece of same color of yarn, which I will be showing. Now you want to make sure you have it proportioned right, so this is the front, and I'm going to go and show me stuffing it just a little bit, because, there's no tutorial on stuffing, but I am learning when you give a good stuff, it really makes a difference. So I'm just kind of showing you my whole process here, guys. I do use scissors. That is my trick. I use scissors to help shift around the stuffing, because I want the perfect fluff for her, guys. I want this Panda to be so plushy. Now, markers. You can use anything, a pencil, glue stick, a pen. Now we are enclosing our top, guys. Now just as we did the bottom, you're going to be taking your tail and working it from inside out through all the loops, all the stitches. And the markers are going to be used for the first stitch, because it will be disappearing on you as you start to tug. Go ahead and insert any marker to hold it open. I'm using a glue stick here, guys. It doesn't be nothing special or fancy or anything. Just anything you can find to hold that stitch open. So remember, like I said, from inside out, that's your golden rule when it comes to enclosing. So enclosing the top is way easier, I think, than the bottom. It's more visible. And do you see how I added another glue stick to the second stitch of the last? Because I'm going to be pulling here. Just want to make sure I do not lose those stitches. And then I'm adding more stuffing. So this is all where you can start working your own plushie and add as much stuffing, get it to your preference. You're simply enclosing it tightly. You're going to go through all stitches. With this one, you do go through all stitches. Every single one you cast it on. Removing my markers here, guys. And then just as the bottom, tie a knot and tuck it in the previous opening. I'm showing you guys. I'm taking my whole process. I'm adding more fluff here. I just want this Panda to be super fluff for her. And then, like I said, I will be showing you when I add in the hot glue. I simply just stick in the glue gun in the opening, and then apply a small piece of cut same color of yarn. I just want it will come out in with rough play. And she's very little, guys. She's not going to be throwing this up in the air like my other toddlers. But I just want, it's just all about the longevity for me. So I do recommend using hot glue with your enclosings right there. And you guys, you can't even feel it. You would never know that there's hot glue. And so there it is. It should be looking like a snowman. At least mine is, because I stuffed it so much. Your Panda should already be looking like it's coming to life.